Hey, it's the advocate. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing a family member of mine. And her name is Dr. Marcia Mierez Benard. And she practices family medicine. And she's going to join the CJ Cares podcast today to tell us about her story of writing a book. And she's going to indulge us today. Welcome to the CJ Cares podcast. How you doing today?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me, cuz I appreciate it.
Definitely, definitely. So, you know how these things happen. I saw that you had sent the link for the book, and I said, you know what, you should let me interview you. And but I just saw the opportunity to highlight your story.
Mhm.
And I'm happy to have you on the platform. So before we jump into the interview, the meat of the interview, I wanted to ask you some icebreaker questions,
Okay.
right? So if you had to say which island, you're from Trinidad and Tobago,
hmm
which island represents you the best? Trinidad or Tobago?
Okay. Well, funny fun fact. I was born in New York, but my parents are from Trinidad and Tobago. But definitely I would say Trinidad more so than Tobago. Tobago is kind of laid back, easygoing. It's relaxing. It's more vacation time. But Trinidad has the fruits, the life, the sort of the vibe of the island. But still, it's more fun.
Okay. Now, being that you have Caribbean roots, do you have another area of the globe that you find fascinating?
Wow. Well, definitely, I've enjoyed Puerto Rico a lot. I want to get back there. We took a little island hop cruise a while back, and it was just nice to sort of be in all these places that, although they were different, they still felt like home. So definitely, but Puerto Rico was very nice and relaxing. So I want to get back there.
Yes, awesome.
And I did
Now,
stop into Cuba, actually. Cuba was on point. As much as, people say that, there's so much going on down there right now, but we had a good time in Cuba. It was really nice walking on Malecon and just going down the strip. And it was very interesting. You felt so safe out there, which is unique. Walking down the streets like at night, no problem. Whereas sometimes in the States, that's not exactly an experience you can have.
that's true. Now, I believe as a healthcare worker that we are superheroes, right?
Mhm.
And I know that the job that you have to do can be difficult at times. So, if you had to choose a theme song for yourself, before you embark on your day going to work, what would that theme song be?
Um, I can't remember the artist, but there's a song way back when that said you got to be bad, you got to be bold, you got to be wiser, you got to be hard, you got to be tough, you got to be stronger, you got to be cool, you got to be calm, you got to stay together. Love will save the day. And I think that is pretty much the mantra that you got to walk into it with. If I had to pick one, that would probably be the theme song. hmm
Okay. Now that's awesome because you gave the whole lyrics and it kind of really has a calming effect, I would think, once you hear it and listen to it.
hmm
That's cool. Now, Marcia, I know you wrote a book. What is the title of your book?
Infertility Seasons, a Female Physician Journey.
Okay. And you wrote this book based on your experience and you wanted to share it with others. Now, let's go back first into your journey as a physician. Where did you go to school for med school?
Okay. Well, I am a doctor of osteopathic medicine. So I'm a DO. We do it. And so literally, I went to University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey School of Osteopathic Medicine. That is in New Jersey. It was in Stratford, New Jersey, but they also had like a sister campus down in Piscataway and Newark and New Brunswick, that type of thing. Unfortunately, the school underwent a split under Chris Christie, who was the then governor, and one faction became Rutgers, so the MD branch became Rutgers, and we, the DO branch, are now Rowan University. So that's, yeah, my former school. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you've been practicing medicine for how long?
Ooh, over 17 years. I'm telling my age.
I
Oh, over
understand.
17 years now. Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Right. I'm sure you've had some unique experiences as a doctor. Now, can you describe a difficult time that you had getting your education and how you overcame the challenge?
Absolutely. Woo, they don't make it easy for the 2 to 5% that is us in medicine. It is still difficult to do what you need to do to get through the annals of medicine as a black female or black male. And unfortunately, there are still many microaggressions that you experience, not only as a individual of color, but as a female in a male dominated profession. And one of the worst times, I would say, in my professional life in terms of trying to get there was an internship residency. That was a very difficult time. I was what you would call the whipping girl. There's a whipping boy and a whipping girl, and there's not much difference, but yeah, in other words, you're the main one that they would haze, you're the main one that they would target, all this type of stuff, try to get you out of the program, whatever the case may be. It's horrendous. It's a nightmare. I don't wish it on my worst enemy. But it's something that I had to go through. And the funny thing is, it all started with standing up for myself against a misogynistic surgical resident. And it
Mm.
was standing up for myself and standing up for another female who happened to be Caucasian, And, we were in this rotation, and it was really a terrible time. He was giving us a warm time of it and cussing us out, all this kind of stuff. And it was like, okay, I can listen to this in one ear, out the other. But when I saw she broke down crying, something in me just kind of snapped. And then I gave him the business. But of course, when that happens, there is retaliation that happens. And while I made it through my surgical residency, okay, in terms of that particular rotation, they kind of had a conversation with my family med buddies and decided that, yeah, it was time to punish me. So that was
Mm.
a tough time. It became continually tough, and yeah, 10 times hotter was the fire. But God, a strong mother, a strong church community, a strong family back home that would not let it be so. The support that I had, the love that I had, and the backing that I had, knowing that God was with me and He would see me through this was what I needed. And
That's
that was
great.
the support that got me through. It really was.
Right. Now, Marcia, yeah, I know you're married to my cousin, Kevin,
Yes.
and I just want to say to you, right, that I believe that Kevin is the epitome of everything that's great about Trinidad, right?
I would agree.
He he was my first tour guide, and can you imagine as a young kid in Trinidad, not born there, and my biggest dream was to be able to play basketball in a foreign country,
Mm,
right?
nice.
So, Kevin brought me to play basketball, and it was one of the highlights of my life because playing with other young people in another country, and they accepted me. We bonded, and he made every trip over to Trinidad great, and he's a good person, and I'm happy for you both, and that your family has expanded and has grown, and you guys are able to tell the story together, and look where you are guys today.
Yes, thank
You
you.
know, it's awesome. It's a very, very, very awesome story that you have. that you, as a woman, wanted to have children?
Okay. Well, I definitely was a bit of a late bloomer on that one. I wasn't, I guess, the typical female that dreamed of the wedding day and the family life or what have you. And there were certain things that I speak about in the book early on that impacted my life in a way such that I did not look at marriage and family as an option per se, and was solely focused on medicine as a career and not focused on family and marriage at all. That came into being much later on, and thankfully so, because it is a wonderful aspect of my life. But initially, yeah, that thought didn't come around probably until I met your cousin.
Right, right, right.
So yeah, there
Now,
was a lot of transformation. So I was definitely in my late 20s when I started to even entertain that idea.
so now, how does Kevin feel about you writing this book, if you don't mind me asking you?
Um, I think he was supportive, but just kind of like he's very measured and tempered in what he does. But while he was supportive, he just was like, okay, well, do your thing and write your book or what have you, and we'll see how it goes. But he didn't really he supported it. He didn't stop it. He didn't think it was child's play. He felt like it was important for me to let my voice be heard, and I appreciate that support. But yeah, but he's very laid back, so he was calm about it, and he was okay with it, because a lot of times, this is sort of like a couple's hidden secret, or the code of silence is there around this thing. And it's, even though it's a woman's thing in a sense, it's still a couple's thing, and so you kind of have to get buy-in from both parties to be able to delve into that area and talk about it. But it was time to break the code of silence.
Okay. Now, did you recall having uh m- effects to your mental health as a result of having infertility issues?
I think it was a challenge of faith for me, honestly, because in terms of mental health, I think my belief in God is very strong, and it's one of the bases for what I do on a day to day, on the day to day. But I really had a tough time merging the thought of, here is a God who can do the impossible and has done the impossible, and yet in my life he hasn't shown up and showed out. So it was kind of, what's going on? What's happening? What's the rate limiting step here? And a lot of times I think the punishment from my mind was thinking that maybe because I had shunned it for so long, and sort of put that on the back burner in terms of that's not an option for me for such a long time, that maybe I had wished it away too much. Maybe I had kind of talked against it too much, scorned it too much for it to become a reality for me. So that was kind of a tough sort of coming to understand my faith in the context of infertility.
Now, are you in when it came down to dealing with this infertility issue as a family, right?
Hmm.
Um, is it something where you were looking to understand, okay, well, look, we're not getting pregnant, and what's going on here, and you're going to the doctor and asking questions about, why we're not getting pregnant? What did that process look like for you?
Ooh, that was a long, tough process. It took a while to even figure out, what was going on, because sometimes you get vague answers. You don't get straight answers, and that is a tough thing for somebody who's science based, because we deal in facts and figures, and we deal in, what's real, not what's imagined. But a lot of times they don't have exact answers. And that is kind of frustrating, because here it is, you're trying to understand what is happening, why it's happening or not happening, and nobody can give you a straight answer. So you go to one clinician, they're like, everything's fine, they run their labs, they do their things, and oh, everything's normal, just keep trying. You go to another physician, oh, you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is basically, your ovaries are creating eggs, but they're not really doing what they're supposed to do. Um, and they're not maturing and ripening to the point where they can be fertilized and things of that nature. So they throw out this term at you with very little, sort of background and very little testing. And, so you're like, okay, is this real or is this imagined? They start putting you on medications and things of that nature to try to make things happen, and nothing's happening. And yet time goes by and you're doing life still, but you don't have answers. And a lot of times that was the frustrating piece, that it took so long to get answers. Well, along the way, things like advanced maternal age get thrown out because now you get older. Diminished ovarian reserve, or you don't have as many eggs, you have like this much eggs left, and all these things start to come into play. So it becomes a bit of a challenge to stay encouraged in the midst of all these things that are really trying to discourage you in your journey.
Okay. Now, why do you feel that you wanted to have kids? Why was it so important for you? Especially like, you were not successful, I can imagine, more than once, right? And you're going down this road, right? And is the importance or the value of having children diminished at all when you're going through that process?
No, I think it's actually magnified and intensified even more, um, because the more that you were being told no is the more that, well, I guess I'm a bit stubborn. I was like, no, I'm not accepting that. I'm not taking that. This is not going to be our reality. Now, a lot of people would be like, well, why didn't you just adopt, or why didn't you just foster, or things of that nature? And those were things that we were looking into as well. And actually, I have two grown daughters without the paperwork that we kind of look after, and and have nurtured or what have you. But that's something that kind of just came about organically. However, I wanted for us to be able to have that conception journey, have that pregnancy journey, have that, this is our child. I wanted to be able to contribute to our family legacy in that way. I wanted to be able to give my husband an heir. He is the last of his name, and if if it stopped there, then his bloodline would be cut. And I prayed to God, because I didn't think that that was, what should be the case. I think he's a pretty decent human being. He's a wonderful man, and I felt like that needed to be promulgated throughout, this world. I mean, there's so many things that go on, and so many people are having babies, and I'm like, well, it's raining on the just and the unjust. Well, I don't know which one you consider me to be, but I would like to, get some rain here too. So I'm like, so I said, and I really, I felt it for my husband, because here it is. Finally, I realized, yes, this is the man I love. This is the man I want to spend the rest of my life with. This is the man that I want to have children with, that I feel secure and safe and comfortable having children for. And yet it could not happen. And so it was devastating. It was personally very devastating. And
Infertility Seasons, A Female Physician Journey, a book by a seasoned female physician of color, Dr. Marcia Mierez Benard, wrote this book to share her personal infertility journey. While there are some light-hearted moments, the reader is taken through the seasons of life experienced in the context of years of grappling with infertility. Read the book now.
Along the way, they do all their testing and all their things, and they test males too, and all of this stuff. And the tough part was learning that, yeah, he was okay. So the buck stopped here. And when I realized that, it was like a gut punch. It was like a blow. But the one thing, he would not let me carry that alone. He wouldn't let me make it my problem. He wouldn't let me make it my issue. It was our problem. It was our issue. It was what we were facing as a couple. And I'm grateful for that because, yeah, the story could be vastly different for a lot of women with their men. And I pray that, the sisters going through this journey of infertility, multiple miscarriages, I pray that they find a partner or have a partner that is that supportive.
Did you ever feel like God was telling you no?
I wondered that. I questioned. I wasn't sure who I needed to be in the scenario. I kept hoping, even by a hangnail, I would hold on to hope. Sometimes you were up, sometimes you were down about it, but you still held on. And at points, I felt like maybe I was pushing the envelope too much. Maybe I was asking God for something that He did not want for me or see for my life. But I kept thinking of the story of this sort of unjust judge and this lady that just kept bugging him, bugging him, bugging him, bugging him. And it was like, it was because she kept bugging him that he granted her wish, just probably to get rid of her. But it's like, well, God, who am I supposed to be? Am I that person? Or am I the person that's just like, okay, speak the word, Lord, and it's done, and we're going to let that ride? So it was tough trying to figure out who to be because I wasn't sure that the answer was no. At one point, it seemed like it was going to be no because we tried and tried and tried and tried so many other methods and so many things. And then, yeah, got up to IVF and all this type of stuff. And, you know, injections and medications and prepping and priming and taking off time here and there and going through all these procedures, and then to have it like not happen, it was like, okay, so what are we saying? Is this a no? Is this a reset? Is this a regroup? And then later on to find out that one of the meds weren't even effective, you
Hmm.
know and there was a potential lawsuit that we could have been a part of, but then we would have to stop our journey, stop trying and kind of wait for things to pan out with that. And it's like, I don't have that type of time, I'm sorry. So yeah, we basically let that go, did what we had to do, and kept going. But I don't think I got a definitive no answer, so I just kept pressing, I just kept hoping, kept praying, kept moving, kept doing what and just doing life in between.
That's great. Did you ever come to understand the reasons why you were not able to conceive prior? Or were there
Um,
any contributing factors like diet or hereditary issues or something of that nature?
I knew that I had in my family some older, I think an older aunt that had difficulties conceiving, but she prayed and God worked that out for her in the form of two boys back to back. But, and one of my sisters took a long time to conceive as well. Um, so it was something that, that was in the back of my mind that, well, maybe this is something that's familial. Um, But when I started digging for answers and kept getting sort of vague information and incomplete information, then I started trying to figure out what could be going on. But then down the line, I came to understand per one of the infertility doctors. I think I had three or four, four, and one of them actually identified some polyps and some fibroids, and those were sort of inhibiting the potential implantation process. And so I ended up having a surgery when I was supposed to be going to a wedding. So That was a rough time. That was a rough time. One minute I was getting my packing on and I was ready to go and enjoy myself. And the next minute it's like, no, you're coming in for surgery this day because I don't like what this looks like and you need to get this out. And it's like, okay. Rerouting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, what would you say to a woman that is suffering from infidelity now and for words of encouragement?
Okay. Don't lose hope. The naysayers will be there. Don't listen to the naysayers. If this is what you want, go for it. For me, I believe in a higher power. I prayed to God and I kept going after our dream of having a family expansion. Do not give up. For young women, I would say, if you're even remotely thinking of this in terms of having children down the line, freeze your eggs if you're not ready right now. Things get so much easier if you already have eggs sort of in storage, waiting to go when you actually make up your mind about this. And your mind can change. I'm definitely a witness to that. For older women in the process, don't give up. I conceived at 47 and I gave birth at 48. That's like donkey years for most people. It's
Mhm.
considered ancient. So, yeah, I would be, I guess, classified amongst the modern day Sarahs of the time. But yes, and seek out those physicians and those clinicians that are willing to help you and go to the mat for you. Go and redo your research and see who you're comfortable with and see how they operate. If you're okay with what they're doing and how they're operating, fine. If you don't feel comfortable with them, find someone else. I ended up, let me see. So there was one in Miami, there were two up here in Huntsville, and I ended up going to a reproductive endocrinologist, a specialist in Atlanta, Georgia.
That's
And
great.
that's where the
Mhm.
breakthrough came. I got to give a shout out to Dr. Desiree McCarthy Keith from Shady Grove Fertility. It was awesome what they did for me and the fact that they were rooting for me and pushing for me and advocating for me. It was not just, um, okay, well, let's run this test or let's run this thing. Well, let's see what happens. And, kind of nonchalant. I didn't need nonchalant. I needed somebody pushing for me.
Right.
I needed somebody pushing for us.
That's awesome. Now, especially with that experience, what are some of the best practices that you learned for couples who are looking for resources to assist with infertility?
Okay. There are grants that are available. And a lot of times it's when you get to your reproductive endocrinologist that you'll even find out about some of these grants. There are grants available and there are loans available that can help you with your reproductive journey. The unfortunate thing in this country is that some states cover infertility treatments and other states do not. Unfortunately, it seems to be that more of the northern states cover infertility treatments and the southern states do not. They cover testing and diagnostics towards infertility, but past that, they will not cover anything in terms of meds, treatments, procedures, injections, none of that. So those are all your costs. If you're in certain brackets, well, you're going to end up paying yourself. It's an expensive process, it's very costly. However, there are some grants that are available. There are some specific loans that are available that can help you to extend your family because it is a costly procedure. And so that can assist with some of the, to offset some of um, the difficulties in terms of costs that some families face trying to conceive.
Okay, that's great. Excellent resources. Now, I wanted to talk about the book. Why was it important for you to jot your experience down?
I believe that we don't have very many Black voices talking about this problem that is affecting Black lives. Here it is. In this day and age, we're going through infertility, left, right, front, and center. And yet, the amount of material that speaks directly to us is limited. It's very minuscule. And it's important that we, again, break the code of silence to say, hey, it happens to us too. It seems as though, unfortunately, we've been labeled in history, as being super women, as being super strong, as being, and Black Girl Magic, all those things are wonderful in their context. However, sometimes it leads to a mislabeling, and it leads to people sort of being misled in terms of what our medical issues may be and what we may be going through in our health journeys. And so I felt like it was important to identify it not only from a female perspective, but a female of color perspective, and also as a physician going through it. Because here it is, you would think that a physician would, be able to relate to all these things and understand absolutely everything about this, but it is so unique, this particular area and facet of medicine, that it is something that you have to sort of research and grab your head around it as well, because it's not something that is widely dealt with or known, except, in those particular circles of the reproductive endocrinologists.
Now, as a woman is reading your book,
Mhm.
what can they expect to read out of the book from you in terms of your writing style?
Well, I hope they have fun along the way. 'Cause I think I brought some interesting stories. There were some challenging times there early on. It talks about my life in stages of seasons. It talks about how my simple beginnings and the desire for medicine and how that sprung about, and how that was sort of nurtured in the context of a young life, fostered by church and school, and and the sort of community that raised me, and then some of the challenges that ensued thereafter that kind of took things, you know, in a leftward direction in terms of marriage and family. And then how, grace of God, I was able to come back to, an acceptance of the idea and the belief in marriage and family. And then from there, the difficulties when realizing, hey, nothing's happening here. What's going on? It's been a minute. We know what to do, and we've been doing that, and we know when to do, and still nothing's going on. There's something up. And then going through the process of trying to identify what's going on and trying to overcome the obstacles, and just trying to stay positive. We did a lot of traveling. We had a lot of life transitions, job changes, this, that, and the other, and a third. Everybody does. But some significant times, even having to, to be apart for a few, like a few months, well, here and there, and being weekend lovers, or being every couple of weeks, that type of thing. So yeah, it were some tough challenges. However, what I realized is that, some of those things, even though they were difficult, they strengthened you in a way, and they prepared you for what you had to face down the line.
That's great. Now, I imagine in your practice as well, you encounter patients who are having difficulties. But also, before I go somewhere else, are you observing an uptick in women that are encountering infertility?
Yes, and while I wasn't seeing it initially in my practice in terms of urgent care and emergency medicine, in family med now, there's more of a potential to, to see that aspect. And I definitely have gotten with my OBGYN, who was excellent and managed my pregnancies superbly. That's a shout out to Dr. Hugh Bailey, who did a wonderful job of maintaining, a pregnancy in this old lady here. And what I realized is, if you don't ask, you won't know. So you got to ask the question. And when you find out the information, get help for them. get them to a reputable source for help. I made the connection between the reproductive endocrinologist in Atlanta and the OBGYN here in Huntsville. I also made the connection between the family doctor that I use and the reproductive endocrinologist in Atlanta, because I felt like that connection was such a strong and powerful connection that I felt like that needed to happen. And these physicians here needed to know that they have an advocate, there. And find your people, find the people that'll work for you. And that's what I believe in. So I try to make the necessary referrals and necessary things happen so that they can get the help they need, and they don't have to wait around or suppose or guess as to who
Right.
to go to.
That's great. Can you take us to the day that now, after all of this struggle,
Mm-hmm.
all of this heartache and pain, mishaps, and now you conceive?
Mm-hmm.
And
Hmm.
how
Mm-hmm.
was that day? What were you and Kevin feeling in that moment when you were knowingly pregnant?
Oh my gosh, that was ecstatic. That was ecstatic. The funny part was, I was doing one of my 24-hour ER shifts, because that's what I was doing at the time. I was doing urgent care and then doing some 24 hours pulling in the ER. And I was actually on one of those shifts. So I was away from home. But I got a call from the reproductive endocrinologist, and it's like after procedure and all this type of stuff. So I'm like bracing myself to hear, potentially another, okay, it didn't work out, but maybe we can try again, that type of thing. So kind of bracing. And it's like, okay, she's like, so, hi, Dr. Mierez. So what do you tell your patients when your beta HCG is this level or this? And I'm like, is you serious? I was like, what do you
Mhm.
mean? So I was like, I was giddy for a second. I'm like, wait, my beta HCG is what? And she told me, yes. And we're going to check to make sure it doubles and this. But congratulations, you're pregnant. I was so ecstatic. And I wish I could have ran home and and just like grabbed up my husband's neck, but like I was on a 24-hour shift, so I couldn't run out the hospital. But I called him right away and told him that we were pregnant, and we celebrated. But even before that, when we did the procedure, something just felt um good about it. We felt comfortable about it in that moment. And it was just like during COVID, all these restrictions and things were placed. So the weirdest thing was I had to have the procedure. I had to go in and he had to wait like outside, which was tough because here it was, we'd been through this journey all along together.
Right.
And, but as soon as I got down there to the truck and we got in, we just kissed and we just kind of had a moment. And it was special because it felt like we knew, it felt like we were okay. Of course, then it was like, okay, relax, nothing for this weekend. Just, put your feet up, just do nothing. Just, just relax and see what happens. And then we went back to Huntsville. And so it's like, okay, you're working, but you're waiting. You're anticipating. You're doing everything you need to do, but you're waiting. You're wondering, you're hoping, you're thinking, okay, did it not? But it was a wonderful thing. And I must say that there was another key piece to this. There is a first lady that was the first lady of First Church. And she runs a ministry called They That Wait Ministries. And that's Gianna Snell. And I definitely finally reached out because my family physician was kind of behind me, like, yeah, you should talk to him or what have you. But a lot of times it's that code of silence, that not wanting to be vulnerable, that makes you kind of sit there and feel your pain and nurse your pain yourself. But finally, yeah, I went to her on behalf of another couple that was going through some miscarriage struggles. And my husband kind of checked me on this, was like, you talked to her about them, but you didn't talk to her about yourself. You didn't talk to her about what was going on here. Why? You know? And then I was called out on the carpet, like, okay, get over yourself. Get whatever pride it is, or whatever, insecurity, scared, whatever feeling that was, vulnerability, get it together and have the conversation. And so finally we did. And I tell you, she prayed and she prayed. And, after we had talked about all that had gone on before, she prayed. And I felt a change in my body. It sounds weird, but I honestly believe my body was quickened. And I have to say it's God.
I believe so as well. Now, I know you had mentioned the procedure, but did you
Mm-hmm.
do something specifically different that time
Mm,
around that was different from the previous time that you had tried, or was it just all
mm.
part of a process and that was just where you were at the process?
I think a couple of things happened. Like, one, I was partnered up in prayer. Two, I was slimmer before, but I had put on some pounds. So the funny thing was, this pandemic hit, and as a part of the pandemic, at a particular point, things had slowed down for just a brief moment in the urgent cares and the family med offices and things of that nature. Things had slowed down to a crawling pace for a moment, and so within that time frame, they were like, oh, we're going to clip your hours from 12-hour days to like 9-hour days or something like that. And it's like, okay, so, all right, that means I'm in at 8 and I'm out at like what, 5, 6? Oh, okay, I could do this. So I said, perfect. I'll just use that time to go walk my neighborhood, go walk around, go do something, what have you. So it's funny, my exercise kind of just upticked without, much of a problem or much of a delay, because I had time to myself. So the funny thing was, the blessing of the pandemic is, I was able to get some time in between there for a few months to have some daylight to be able to just do my exercise. And while I wasn't going in anybody's gym anymore, because I was doing the gym before, but I would have to do that after work or, around time. And I was training with somebody. So I did that for a while. And so I was building up my muscles because I wanted to be strong. Um, then I was able to sort of just do some real cardio, and I think that helped. I really do. I really do think that helped as well. And the fact that I had actually gotten out the polyps and the fibroids and all this type of stuff, I believe it made it a more favorable environment for implantation. Had I known that some of these rate limiting steps existed, I probably could have done some things earlier on, but all things in time.
Looking back on your experience, from the beginning,
Mhm.
discovering, hey, wait a minute, I can't have children, to, oh, wait a minute, it's going to be a challenge to have children, to, oh, wait a minute, we have a child, to now an author. My question to you is, would you do this whole experience again?
Absolutely. As much as there were painful periods, there was still joy in it. There's still togetherness. I know that I have a real partner. Um, this is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the namby-pamby, as they say. So I know that the journey that we took is one that, although it was difficult, it helped to solidify us in certain ways. And so, as much as it was tough, and now my baby boy is here, oh my goodness, I would do it, and I would continue to do it. Yeah, I would do it again. I would.
That's awesome.
I would.
Now, can you just expound on having a good partner and why that is important, and especially going through infertility?
Hmm. You need support. You need encouragement. You need that love that's going to stick with you. You don't need somebody who's in and out, wishy washy, here today, gone tomorrow. You need consistent, straightforward, stalwart love and support. It is not something that you want to go through and not have that support. It is difficult. Even in, even with having that support, it's very difficult. But it's something that helps to buoy your spirits up. It helps to make the bad days not so bad and the good days even better. I mean, we did different things. We traveled. We enjoyed our lives in other ways. And for the few people that allowed us to be a part of their life, with their kids and things of that nature, we enjoyed that too.
Hmm.
Because yeah, sometimes you're looked at as a pariah when you don't have kids and other people have children, and they're just like, okay, what's up with them? I don't know. So they kind of ostracize you. But for those few couples and those few families that did kind of make us a part of their family and a part of their dynamics, and we were able to interact with their kids, it was priceless for us. But yeah, you need support. You must have support. It is not something that you want to undertake on your own. It's too hard.
And I know Kevin is very happy to have a son and carry on his bloodline. My
Hmm.
question is, does your son know how to? Do you feel that you're gonna encourage your son to play soccer?
Oh yeah, I think he'll be out there. He's walking now, and so yeah, he's trying to run. So I think he'll be out there probably within the next couple months. He's going to be 1 in April, and I suspect he'll be out there in the backyard soon.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Kevin used to abuse me in soccer as a kid. I know your son will have that in his genes, and
Oh yes,
I think soccer is a wonderful sport that allows you to do other sports as well. So,
absolutely. I was a
Marcia, what is
goalie back in the day, but yeah, that was just backyard soccer. I can't
okay,
do
okay.
that anymore.
I understand. And what is the name of your book one more time?
Infertility Seasons: A Female Physician Journey.
And where
And I
can
think I have
they
one more book in me at least, which will be, God willing, if I can get it out, the Book of Ethan. Hmm.
All right, okay. And where can they find the book?
It is on Amazon KDP. So, yes, you can find the book on Amazon.
Okay. And the name of the book again?
Infertility Seasons: A Female Physician Journey.
That's awesome. What do you do for relaxation now that you are a parent and you are have a practice, and now you have more to juggle. So what is rest and relaxation for you these days?
Well, before it got super cold, I would walk my son in the neighborhood. That was what we were doing. And I'd sing to him and we'd clap, we'd do different things. And also I do music appreciation with him. It's funny, but yeah, even in the womb, I was playing stuff for him, different genres of music to see what he would gravitate towards. So I may have created a bit of a music snob. It's possible, but because he loves music and it seems like he's definitely got an ear for it, and he's been training mommy and daddy in terms of notes, or at least trying to already. So yeah, but I really, yeah, I walk him or I spend time with him. That's my extracurricular is kind of more surrounded around my son right now. I haven't but every now and again I will get out with one of my sister docs. We may go do a little lunch or something to that effect. I
Mhm.
have done that because you make it a point to, also interject a little bit of me time in there. So yes, I have done that, and every now and again, I will go get a massage. I will, get a facial because there's still an important role for self care, but it's important to have that support so that you can do it. And right now, my mom is up here with myself and my spouse, and she's helping us out with our baby, and she is just loving on her grandson. And
Mhm.
we are loving the fact that grandma is here because then we get a few minutes here and there to be together as well. So that becomes important because you have to find that time
Of
and
course.
still connect. And yeah, that can be difficult when you're new parents. And so just to have a little bit of time to connect is important.
Right. That's great. Well, Marcia, I just want to say that I think that you provide a wonderful service to your patients, and you're a very giving person. And I wanted to give you your kudos because, as a healthcare worker, a lot of what you do goes unnoticed to a lot of people. They wouldn't even understand the nuances that you would have to deal with on a day to day basis. So I just want to say that, I know that you're not finished, but up to this point, that the best is yet to come.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that greatly. That is
Definitely.
important. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your story and the book that you've written about your experience based on struggles to have a child, essentially, and to never lose faith. I think that your faith definitely played a huge part into you actualizing the goal of having a child. And, is very inspiring. So I just want to thank you again for inspiring people who may listen today.
Thank you so much for having me. And to all my sisters still in the journey, don't lose hope. Stay in it. Don't lose hope. Stay in the fight. Partner with fellow people who are like-minded, who are going through, but don't lose hope. Don't give up.
Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Marcia Mierez Benard, for coming on the CJ Cares podcast. And we'll love to have you on again in the future to contribute.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a wonderful time,
All
and I
right.
would love to.
All right. Take care.